This is the SAU Report, a program featuring interviews with the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.
Welcome to the SAU Report. I'm Lori Porter.
And I'm Adrienne Lawton.
David Murphy is the Technical Director and Assistant Director of Theater at Southern Arkansas University. Hello, how are you?
How you doing?
David, where are you originally from?
I was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And did you move to any other places during your childhood?
Yeah, when I was 14, my parents, who are originally from South Louisiana, moved back to Louisiana. So, I went to high school there. It was quite a change going from a junior high of like 2,300 students to a high school of 400.
Oh, gosh.
Could you tell us a little bit about your educational background? Did you stay in the South for your college education?
Yeah, I went to Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond and got my bachelor's degree in general studies in applied behavioral sciences of all things, with a minor in theater.
So, but you have some broadcasting experience as well, too, do you not?
Yes, I was a broadcast major for 4 years.
4 years and
Yeah.
switched.
Yeah, the foreign languages killed me.
Yes.
They really did.
Why did you choose the University of South Mississippi to attain your master's?
USM has a very solid reputation as a very good school. Their theater department is quickly becoming one of the places to go for MFA degree in the South. They're endowed, and as a matter of fact, they're expecting to move into a new theater building in 1999. They've raised over $11 million for a new theater building, so got a really fine program.
We know that you have a background in acting, and you did that for quite some time.
Yeah.
And you kind of switched from acting to theater design. How did that come about?
When I was an undergrad, I was given the opportunity to design a show in a class. And talking to the technical director and designer there that was teaching the class, it was just exciting. You're in control of the artistic look of the show, what the people are going to see. And that trickles down into the costumes, into the lighting, just the general look. And you're involved in a design for a show for such a long time. Whereas as you're acting, you might come in 5 or 6 weeks before the show opens, and that's what you do. You're rehearsing the whole time. But when you're designing or directing, you're involved in such a long time, and the decisions that you have to make affect the whole look of the show.
And I'm sure being an actor, being on the other side, gave you a lot of insight on set design.
It does.
Of what works and what you like as an actor?
Well, one of the things that beginning designers have a problem with are creating what they call actor traps. Mm-hmm. Steps that are too high for someone to navigate safely or gracefully, mm-hmm. Or arranging furniture or platforms or whatever in such a way that there's only one way in or one way out. That really limits your blocking. And yeah, it helps. You have that background and you know what not to do or what to do, what works, what doesn't work, what's comfortable for an actor to be on.
Do you miss acting?
No.
No? So we won't see you on stage here?
No.
What is one of your most interesting sets that you've ever designed or helped design?
The set that we did at USM for Orpheus Descending was a very complicated design. It was multi-level, and each level had a different rake, which means the floor was pitched.
Right.
And each level had a different rake, and there were no square corners on it. Everything was very odd. It was a hard one to build, but it looked really, really good. Played with a perception of the audience as what they saw on the stage as far as their perspective.
Right.
And that's fun. Playing with an audience's vision is always a lot of fun, what they see.
How do you deal with criticism of your sets or things that you want to do to a set? How do you personally deal with that?
I get over it. What are you going to do? Part of the wonderful thing about theater is that you're presenting something for an audience to react to.
Right.
Whether they like it or not, if they think about it, if they see it, and a negative reaction is a reaction. They were there and they saw it, and you did your job. And if they like it, they're welcome to like it. If they're not, they don't like it, then what are you going to do?
And definitely some of the feedback that you do get, even though some perceive it as negative, it can just enhance the next project you do, and some suggestions or.
You try not to let that sort of thing really influence you that much. Everybody's going to see things differently, and that's another beautiful thing about theater is that everybody has a different perception of a show, of a character, of a design. And you might see it the opening night, and if you were not to have seen it that night, if you were to saw it the closing night, you might have had a different opinion of what you saw just because of the things that are going on in your life that affect your perception. But you try not to let those things bother you. If you let every criticism influence what you do, you're going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You have to be true to your own voice inside, and you have to be true to the director and the audience and to the intent of the playwright.
As a designer, do you find that difficult with some producers or some directors? Designers often have that innate feeling of what they want to do, and some producers and directors are very controlling and want to be exactly done certain way.
Yeah, they are.
So, do you have problems with that?
If you can avoid that situation, it's better. But a lot of times, you just can't. And if a director has a specific vision for a show, and he's able to communicate that to you, you're going to be able to take up his vision and add your own and make it yours. Those are exciting projects too, but being told, who wants to be told what to do, but being told this has to be this way is not a good situation, no.
Right.
How do you encourage your students' creativity in building a set?
Free your mind, for one thing. You got to open up. As far as I'm concerned, in design, there are no set rules. There are some technical things that have to be addressed, but as far as the creative end of it, use your imagination. Be creative.
Right.
Do the research. Get into who the playwright is, why he chose to write about the subject that he's writing about. If he's writing about alcoholism, why?
Right.
What is at the heart of this? And get into the visual language. That's playwrights really use visual language and find the metaphors in there, find the meaning. And don't be afraid to try different things, The first idea that you come up with is not always necessarily the best.
Right.
But sometimes you have to work through those. You have to get that out of your mind, out of your system before you can move on. But just have some fun with it,
Do you find it more challenging to do abstract things rather than maybe just traditional, and a little more creativity
What's
in that?
traditional?
Yeah. Like a traditional set that we've seen over and over again, say with The Odd Couple, or do you like to usually kind of go off of the mainstream and do something a little crazy?
What's mainstream?
Okay, now what's normal?
What is normal?
Right.
Abstract ideas, for me, are the funner things to work with. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the characters, the actors on stage? The past show that we did, the effect of marigold of gamma rays on Men of the Moon marigolds. That was a very abstract set, but I think it's a very abstract show. It isn't about gamma rays; it's about life.
Right.
And digging through the dialogue to get to the meat, the meaning behind the characterization. I mean, that's what it's about. You know, that particular show is about the effects that life can have on you if you don't handle life properly.
Well, in that set, the set was tilted, and it was a little, you know, it's different than we normally see. So do you think, I mean, I saw it and it was wonderful, and I felt that was so much more effective than having just a straight-on set of just the couch, and that led to the more meaning of dysfunctional, which is kind of erratic, and so.
And there again is your perception.
Right.
As an audience member of what you saw. That's part of the thrill of theater.
Have you always been interested in theater when you were in high school or when you were little, saying, I want to do that? Have you ever?
Yeah, kind of. You know, who doesn't want to be an actor?
Were you the class clown?
Nah.
Oh,
No, of course not. But sure, I mean, who doesn't want to be an actor when they're growing up? Who doesn't want to be on camera? I mean, you guys, you know, here we are. That's always a part of it. And I was involved in theater when I was 12. My parents got me into this little community show.
Right.
And my parents have always been supportive of the arts. They've always made sure that we went to the ballet, and we went to the symphony, and we went to the opera. And we did these things, you know, the museums and the art galleries and things like that.
So you had every side of it when you were growing up.
Luckily I did, yeah. I feel very fortunate to have grown up where I did that had those kinds of resources. And arts in the schools were very important things.
Yes.
Huge things. You know, just really balances out your education.
I think that's one reason the students here don't have the opportunity to get into theater like the high school students as much, and I think that's one reason theater does not have as many majors as some other the majors.
That's
Because of the opportunity.
I would agree. And also, I mean, look at the area. I mean, it's a very rural area.
Right.
And unless you've got arts in the high schools where students can foster that interest and teachers can nourish that, you know, where are they going to get it? You know?
I heard that before you got the opportunity to come to SAU, you were offered a job at a school in the north. Why did you choose SAU?
Because it's in the South. Honestly, I interviewed with a school in the north, actually a couple of them, and the people are just different. I mean, not in a bad way.
Did you not feel at home?
No, I didn't. The South is a great place to be.
Right.
The people are extremely friendly. Everybody seems to make time for you, whether they have time or not. You know, they'll stop for a few minutes to talk and go out of their way for you. And you know, why give that up?
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, when you came to the school, was the theater department all you expected it to be, or were there some changes you'd like to see?
Yeah. When I interviewed with Dr. Skelton, he was very upfront and very honest with where we were, or where the department was at that time, and where he wanted it to go, and was very honest about that. That had a lot of influence in my decision, frankly.
What are some of the things that you have learned so far as being a first-year college professor?
You know, I do more homework now than I did as a graduate student. You have to be prepared for class. You know, when you're a student, you know, they give you an assignment, and you can say, oh, okay, maybe I'll do it, or halfway do it. But when you're presenting the class, you know, you're the reason that they're in class, and they're expecting good information from you. I mean, you have to be prepared.
Right.
And luckily, the things that I'm teaching are, for the most part, things I'm very interested in.
Right.
And that makes it easy.
Do you ever stop learning as a teacher, or do you keep learning every day?
I hope not. I think we've all had professors at one time or another who were at a point where they didn't think, you know, they knew it all.
Right.
And new technology or new innovations that came out, they weren't concerned with, because there was the old tried and true way, and that's how it was, and that's what we were going to do. I think when you reach that point, you're done.
Yeah.
And don't you think in the field of design and creativity, it's kind of hard to stay in the same niche? I mean, you really have to expand and keep learning because there is so much new technology in that area.
Well, there's the technology, and there's just the whole creative end. I mean, when do you stop being creative and trying different things? And there's so many elements that you deal with in art and design that you could experiment with different combinations for years.
Well, and also art imitates life, and life just keeps changing, and every day things are affected by.
Yeah.
So
Yes, they are.
as we evolve, art evolves, design evolves.
Well, and that's a big part of it. Your experiences today will affect how you are tomorrow, and that in turn affects your perception of things. And it's a never-ending cycle. I mean, it's a continual cycle of growth. That's really exciting, I think.
When you when some of your students graduate, what is something that you want them to take with them? Something that they can say, I got this, I learned this when I was in design class or designing a set.
I would hope that they would learn about their own creative process and their own thinking process.
Right.
I mean, and the creative process is again an ever-changing thing. What works today on this show and this approach with this director probably won't for the next one. So being able to be prepared to change and evolve and to think creatively and learn how to solve problems creatively.
Right.
That's basically the bottom line of what we do. I mean, you have a certain set of parameters that a show has to be fit into, either your stage size or your budget or your crew size or the time that you have to put the thing up. And you have to solve those problems creatively.
Did it take you a long time as a graduate student to come up with these ideas of your own? I mean, to decide that this is what you had to do?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, it's a learning process, and there is a learning curve. But once you get over that hump, it's like, okay, I can finally see this now
Right.
to a degree. And there are, and that makes your life easier, sure.
For the campus, what do we have to look forward to as far as productions?
Well, we have The Odd Couple coming up in November, end of November. I believe it's February is Harvey. And the last show of the spring will be a Sam Shepard play, Buried Child, which should be a very interesting show. And Harvey, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the movie, the Jimmy Stewart movie, about the invisible rabbit. But,
Right.
That's a fun show.
Now, see, in a sense, you might almost think that would kind of be a traditional set. Do you have any creative ideas that you want to change it a little bit, or?
I have no idea right now.
Right now.
I have no idea. Yeah, it's like The Odd Couple. Part of the reason that it is what it is, or it is what it will be, is materials. Okay, we don't have the flats, which make up a wall,
Right.
to do the set like that. We just don't have them, and money is a concern, time is a concern. So what do? You have to think of a creative way to overcome these things, and that's what makes it fun, and makes a good design.
Definitely. Use what you have.
Not that I
Right.
think it'll be good. I mean, it'll be different, but that'll be up to everybody who comes and sees the show to decide.
Well,
how
Gamma
good it
Rays
was.
was a wonderful set, and you used what you had. So it worked well.
I heard that the theater students are going to festival next week, I think. What is something that you could tell them that would maybe help them in festival from your experiences?
Well, for the actors, just relax. Everybody else is just as nervous as you are.
Right.
For the crew, think clearly and work hard, and let's get it set up and get things done. But to relax and enjoy it. It's theater festivals for college students are the only real experience that they have to be immersed in their field of study for a week at a time, and to be able to see what other people are doing and to experience theater at that level is such a high concentration. I mean, it's extremely important.
How many times a year do they go to festival? Do they compete in festival?
There's a state festival in the fall, and then from there there's a regional festival, and a show from each state is picked to go to the regional.
Right.
What exactly goes on at the festival? What happens there?
The schools that are participating will bring a show in to perform.
And it's college?
Yes,
All college.
And it's adjudicated. You have hopefully people who are experienced enough in their fields that they can look at a show and look at it objectively and say, okay, I thought the acting was wonderful, the direction was or the direction was great, the acting was so-so. Technically, and then talk about the technical aspects, but just more or less an educated response to what they have seen.
As a university and a teacher, do you try to pick a particular type of play to take to festival? Is there something that you look for?
The trend has been to try to take shows that nobody knows, you know, or the latest that every community theater in the world has just done because it's brand new.
Right.
And that's kind of been the trend. I think whatever you choose to do, if it's a solid quality production, I mean, that's really what you're after, is solid work and an enjoyable show.
Do you think the students and the faculty and other staff members of SAU support our theater department, support the students who go to festival and who are on stage, you know, a couple of times a year? Do you think they support them fully?
I have to believe they do. The administrative support at the first show, you know, Dr. Gamble, Dr. Ball, Dr. Pyle, all the people connected from there down with the arts on this campus, you know, I mean, they were there.
Right.
From what I understand, it was a very large student crowd. I don't know what has been in the past exactly, but everybody's really excited about the turnout. So.
Because in the past, it has seemed that there have not been as many students as there have been faculty to go. How could we get students involved or just to come and see the plays? What do you think would drive them?
Oh, gosh.
Building an audience is a tricky thing, and in educational theater, if you're going to judge the success of a show by the audience size, I think you're off. You're not even taking into consideration what your students who are majoring and who participated in the show, what did they learn? What did they get out of the experience?
Right.
Did they learn, you know, the technical people, did they learn anything? Were they challenged? And I think that has to be the first criteria of judging a successful show on an educational level.
Right.
I don't know of any educational theater program who lives and dies with the box office. Whereas regional theater or community theater, you know, nobody comes, you don't have any money for the next show, you're done. But I think that has to be the first criteria, is what did our students learn? And yeah, you've got to have an audience. Theater without an audience is just a rehearsal.
Right.
You know? Nobody's there to see it. And it's important. It's very important to have an audience. And part of building an audience is presenting quality work. It could be simple, but if it's solid, if it looks good, if it's well rehearsed, if it's well acted, and it's a quality production, that's the starting point.
With your acting background, is there any performances you'd like to see us do here?
No.
No. There's nothing you'd like to design a set for, a particular show you can think of?
Yeah, whatever comes along.
Yeah.
Dr. Skelton and I will probably sometime in the spring start talking about the season for next year.
And do you consult with students about that to see what they
There
might
should
like
be.
to do?
I don't know if it has
Or-
been in the past, but yeah, there definitely should be.
Yes.
You know, what would they like to see performed, or what would they like to perform in, or what, you know, yeah. Any kind of feedback like that, especially from students who are studying theater, is very important, yeah.
What are some of I know you've done all aspects of the theater, acting and designing. What is some of the importance of the lighting on a set and the cast?
Well, if you can't see them, are they there? Lighting is extremely important. And lighting is an important aspect of the overall design. Obviously, if you have someone in a green dress and you put a red light on it, the dress is going to go black.
Right.
You know, so they have that consideration. But it's very important. Lighting creates mood and atmosphere and can help bring out your colors or hide colors or shift time and space and add texture. It's extremely important.
Do you find it's hard to find good lighting? I've worked on a couple of shows, and lighting seems to be a very precise thing to get down.
Lighting is that way because that's how most of it is taught. That it's a very technical thing. I mean, obviously you're dealing with electricity and lighting instruments and lamps and everything, and you can overload a circuit. And they try to get into the technical. Don't overload your circuit, and this lamp needs to go in this kind of light. And, instead of approaching it more with a creative mindset, because lighting design is just as creative as costuming or sound or scenic design, and it needs to be treated that way.
When I talked to you the other day, David, we talked about some of your favorite playwrights. Could you tell me some of those and why they're your favorite playwrights? What made you got your interest involved?
When you're a student and you're reading plays, it's because you have to.
Right.
This is your assignment. Do it. A.R. Gurney, who's not necessarily new. I like that particular type of shows that he does.
What are some of his shows?
One of them, one of them is called Sylvia. That's the latest one that
Right.
he has come out with, and it's about a couple going through a midlife crisis, and the man picks up a stray dog from the park, and the effect that this animal has on their life.
Right.
Of course, Tennessee Williams is a wonderful playwright.
Do you like all of his work or just certain ones? Or I know you usually don't. Most people who read plays don't like every playwright's work.
True. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof is extremely a very interesting show. I think one that is overlooked a lot that we talked about earlier, Orpheus Descending,
Right.
is an extremely good show. It's based on the Greek myth of Orpheus descending into the underworld to save his wife, and it's a very good show. Very powerful. Miller, of course, and I like Chekhov a lot.
David, I know in the news, you've probably seen it as well as us, there's a lot of talk about cutbacks in the arts. I mean, nationally, not just locally, but how do you feel about that? I mean, I just think it's so important for the arts, and as an instructor or professor, what are your feelings about that? As for an overall education for
Honestly?
students. Yeah.
Honestly.
I think it's very misguided. There have been studies that show that elementary, junior high, high school students who are exposed to the arts do better in math and English than those who aren't. And if people are looking for a way to increase those types of test scores in those subjects, there's a way to do it. And what the arts teach students is a way of thinking, thinking critically, thinking creatively, problem solving. And those kinds of thinking skills obviously carry over to other aspects of what you're doing.
Right.
And to cut those out is, it's just I don't think they're thinking it all the way through.
Right.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, David. I'm Lori Porter.
And I'm Adrienne Lawton.
Thank you for watching.
The SAU Report is a production of broadcast journalism students in the Department of Theater and Mass Communication at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia.